some Big 12 Mojo Rankings. As we do each week on a Wednesday show, it is time to break down the conference 1 through 16, or should I say 16 down to 1. As far as the lay of the land, these are my power rankings with the twist of just taking into account anything I possibly can that can separate these teams. But basically, this is like who's hot and who's proven and who's taking care of their business. But there has been a lot of fluctuation because this conference is just it's just messy that way, where it's all over the place. So let's get into this week's edition of the Mojo Rankings, all the way in week 10 of the season. And let's get into the bottom 4. Will they change this week? Well, just slightly, it appears that they will change this week as we get into the usual 3 here at the bottom. It is what it is. Oklahoma State, we know the deal. They get absolutely destroyed last weekend, as expected, at the hands of Texas Tech. And it's all about who the next coach will be. And, after some original Zach Robinson rumors, or maybe not even so much rumors of just his name being a hot name to throw out, it does feel like Eric Morris is gaining momentum when I look around. So good news for them is they'll have some great options. But right now, the greatest options are off the field and not on the field. And so Oklahoma State remains at number 16 for the foreseeable future. At number 15, West Virginia stays where they've been the last few weeks as well. It's been tough sledding, although do they have their quarterback now? Young Scotty Fox, is he going to be the answer for Rich Rod moving forward? I don't know, but they're not winning games.
He fits the vibe of the Rich Rod offense. He's athletic and moves around a little bit. I think he's going to dive headfirst, and Rich Rod's going to dive headfirst in the portal and see if he can get a guy too.
Of course, yes. Yeah, you'll have to do that. But yeah, Scotty Fox coming off of that TCU loss, 300 yards. He had not thrown for 100 yards prior to that, but 301 yards and a couple of touchdowns. So that was a spark. That's something to hang on to for the freshman quarterback. But yeah, they're definitely not going to just go, oh yeah, he'll be the guy. They're going to have to go to the portal, much like I'm assuming Texas Tech will now be going to the portal if they weren't planning to do so already, and some others will as well. But yeah, West Virginia with another loss. They say at 15, and then Colorado, they say pat at 14. And if it wasn't for the fact that West Virginia and Oklahoma State have kind of entrenched themselves at the bottom spots, then Colorado this would have been a week to just put them at 16 temporarily based on what we saw a week ago. It was that bad. There's just no real answers of substance to be found that's going to turn this thing into a super positive direction. It is what it is at this point with Colorado. They are a fine football team at their best, but mostly they are not at their best, and they've been definitely more bad than good. So they're now 3-5 overall and 1-4 in the Big 12 after that 53-7 loss to Utah. So that Iowa State win, just so random. And without that, then things would really be looking dire for Dion and company. But that at least gave them a couple days of feeling pretty good. But it was right back to the loss column for them after the trip to Salt Lake City. And then UCF. And I'll help explain as I get into the next round, because they just did beat the mess out of West Virginia. But just winning doesn't mean you automatically move up, and that's how it works, because then we would just do standings. Yeah. And that's not the point of this exercise. So UCF, I hate that there's a down arrow, because I don't feel down about them. I feel just fine about them. It's just a matter of the movement ahead of them. So they are down a spot, but I think there is something to like there with Taven Jackson, and I think there's a very real chance they beat Baylor this weekend. And if they do, that would be a huge win for them.
No, and if they do, it'll also be a loss of a head coach.
It will be the loss of Dave Aranda.
By the end of the weekend.
Yeah, no,
if not already, yeah.
I said in my little column for the 365 Sports newsletter, which drops every Wednesday midday, and it's got a video and an article for every team in the Big 12, straight to your inbox, 365sports.video. You can sign up there. But I said as much because I do the write-up for Baylor each week, and I have not gone out and said they need to do this or they must do this. I'm not doing that, but I did say that if they lose to UCF, then yeah, they've got to fire Dave Aranda. Like, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I don't think they'd have much choice. So UCF fans, don't take this as a negative. I'm actually positive on your football team. But let's get into the next four here, and you see a lot of downward movement. Baylor down a couple spots. I just don't like what I see right now from them. It's not good. It's a situation where now you fired your O-line coach just out of the blue after some incident at practice. Your Heisman Trophy contending quarterback's not playing well all the time, and in fact has been kind of bad at times. So you can't rely on him.
The last couple of weeks.
The last couple of weeks, yes. And if you can't rely on him, then what can you rely on with this football team? Not the defense, not the skill guys. I mean, they have very talented guys, but they got to have somebody to get it to them, right? And they don't have a run game that can just self-produce. So it's not fun right now in Dave Aranda land. And yeah, I think this is a must-win for them this weekend. Kansas also dropping a couple of spots, and I think you could make the case that maybe KU's better than Arizona, or maybe that they are. I don't know. Maybe they're just straight up. They're better than an Arizona. But when you go get beat by your arch rival like that at your home field, when everybody knows the stakes and how long it's been since you last beat them, you're going to get dinged a couple of spots for that. So KU drops a couple. Arizona, I didn't realize they moved up 3 here. I'm not, again, super high on them. And I think that the deal that I ran into here was I couldn't keep them. Maybe I should have kept the UCF, but I didn't think UCF ahead of Baylor. That'll get decided this weekend. I'm not putting them ahead of Kansas. So for Arizona, kind of a byproduct of just everything that happened around them, basically. And I do think that they are actually a pretty good team. And you look at their schedule, they got Colorado coming up, but when we've last seen them these past couple of weeks, a 3-point loss on the road at Houston. So they were right there. And the week prior to that, a double overtime loss in a game they probably could have, should have won against BYU. So they are right there and they are close. They're at least being competitive, whereas a lot of these teams that drop below them were not competitive. Cincy beat up Baylor, and then it looked better on the scoreboard at the end than it actually was. Kansas got drubbed. And as I mentioned, UCF's just kind of in no man's land right now, where I'm not sold on moving them up spots. But if they go beat Baylor this weekend, then they will certainly be sitting there with a green arrow next to their name next week. And then Iowa State down another spot to number 9. I mean, they're struggling right now. There's no other way to put it. And last week, very competitive first half, but they just threw up all over themselves against BYU in the second half. I mean, I watched every single second of that, and I'm so glad I wasn't an Iowa State fan, because I would have had no hair left watching some of the blunders and mistakes and the missed opportunities. But Iowa State, from the rock solid number 1 basically to now all the way to number 9 in the power rankings this week.
Yeah, Arizona, there's always going to be, when you
the only thing going south faster is the LSU AD, but
we probably don't have enough time to talk about that today, but we're definitely talking about it early on in the show tomorrow. It's crazy what's going on there, and LSU fans should be terrified. But Arizona, like whenever you do lists like this, like every time I do a mock draft, when I'm trying to do one of those in when it comes to draft season, if I start like trading things around, you start like, oh, this is a good trade for them.
Dude,
you get to a point where you kind of just get stuck on like, oh, well, I got to put this here because now I've gone here. So it's fine to have a team that might jump up a little bit just because like they didn't do anything horrible. Like
they didn't even play.
Yeah, exactly. So
they just didn't get affected.
They didn't get affected. Kansas should drop. Like that was an embarrassing loss. Baylor is an embarrassing loss. Iowa State is it's not it's not embarrassing to lose to Cincinnati or to BYU. It is embarrassing to do it in the fashion that you did.
It's embarrassing to squeeze a loss to Colorado in between those games that you just mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's 3 straight losses for them now.
Yeah.
They've lost 3 straight.
Yeah. And they looked dominant early in the year.
Yeah.
And
so are we saying that Arizona is almost like gravity the other direction because everybody else is going south?
Yeah, I mean, they were rewarded based on basically just not being in action. And I think that this group right here, especially the second half, that second 4 from the bottom, they kind of float around anyways. There's not a lot that separates them. But this was more about, I think, deducting points from Kansas and Baylor based on results. And I couldn't put UCF above them.
No.
And I couldn't put them, like, I wouldn't have felt good putting UCF at 11, right? So it's like Paul said, of like, it can't be perfect. Like, so every week I always feel like there's one team that I'm like, that's not quite where I would want it to be, but I don't know where else to put it, right? So that's kind of Arizona this week for me. And each week there is a team like that. So, yeah, that's who they are for week number 10. But I did say they've played competitive games against two of the better teams in the league. So I don't know that they deserve to jump up 3, but this was not about them as much as it was about the others. So now to the top half of the listing here, and here comes Kansas State. And that's part of the reason that you had like a UCF drop even a spot, was because Kansas State is starting to surge. And I don't know how high they're going to end up, but I definitely feel like they've got their mojo back, and to go and just kick the tail of your arch rival for the 17th straight season is impressive stuff. That's now back-to-back wins because they beat TCU prior to that. So after getting off to a really rough start, it seems like things are starting to progress well. And to the point where that game against Texas Tech in Manhattan's pretty interesting, especially with the Will Hammond news. I think this who's
like nervous is Kim Coulter.
I bet he is.
Ultimate
He
Tech.
should be.
He's been worried about this one, even when K-State was kind of floundering. He's puckered up right now.
They've got their number.
Yeah.
K-State used to
that note from Ari. I didn't know that.
They used to have Texas' number. Remember, no matter how good Texas was, they'd even if they won the game, it was the game where nobody played well. Like it was just it was the bad game. That they have since transferred whatever remaining energy they had apparently into Tech now, even though it's been going a long time when Texas was still in the league. But Kansas State seems to. There's a couple teams down in Texas. They just kind of like to come and ruin their year.
Well, they are up to number 8, so that's part of the surge and kind of putting the second half of the list in a little bit of a spot where how do I move these teams? And it's to give credit to Kansas State in part. Now, I'm not trying to go too crazy, but that is back-to-back wins. They're 500 now in the Big 12, and they do have Texas Tech, so a huge opportunity this weekend. After that, they got Oklahoma State on the road, so that'll likely be a win, but they still got to go to Salt Lake City, and then they close with Colorado. So very curious about K-State here down the stretch. Meanwhile, Arizona State drops a few spots, and I still think they're a good team. There's just too much uncertainty going on right now with them. I mean, Sam Levitt's half healthy at best. Jordan Tyson's half healthy at best. And you've eaten a couple of losses in Big 12 play, so you're technically still in okay shape, but you're almost eliminated from the title picture at this point with a month left to play because you've got 2 losses, and there's 2 teams who don't have losses yet in Cincinnati and BYU. So you're in a mixture of teams like we're going to get to, Tech and Houston and so on, that you're all even with them, but then how do the tiebreakers work, right? So Arizona State, just these injuries, man, have really plagued them. I think that at full strength, obviously, they're arguably like a top 3 team in the league, but you still got to win games, and part of the mojo is kind of the spirit around the team. And so after losing to Houston, I think that took a lot more wind out of their sails. That's 2 of their last 3 they've dropped, but they did have that big win over Texas Tech.
And their schedule, with all due respect, at Iowa State might be too much for them right now without Levitt, but the schedule does open up for them a little bit.
It does. Like I think they can close. I think they'll close 3-0 down the stretch if Levitt is healthy. But yeah, going to Ames this weekend, you don't feel great about it because Levitt's hurt again, and Jordan Tyson's hurt again. And if you don't have those guys, you still have some talent, but not nearly what you used to be. Utah up a spot. I mean, think self-explanatory. They handled their business last week against Oklahoma State. I'm not going to reward them too heavily for that, but they did handle their business, and they looked really good doing so, and they are very much in the mix. Like, they lost that BYU game, and it felt like maybe the sky was falling to some extent, but they've lost to the 2 best teams in the league. They lost to Texas Tech in Lubbock, and they lost to BYU in Provo.
Yeah,
those are their 2 losses. So I take that into consideration heavily, and they are top 5 for that reason.
Okay, who lost to Texas Tech in Lubbock?
Utah. Or not sorry, they were in Salt Lake City.
But they did lose that BYU.
But their losses are Tech and BYU.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think there's a good chance that Utah could just stay here at 5 for the rest of the season.
Could be, yeah.
I mean, because they're good. They're not great, but they're really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not a team that I would be afraid is going to make a deep run in anything, but I don't want to play them in a bowl game. The
chat room is like anticipating the next one. They're trying to pick these along the way. Yeah. So we're about to show them, but Utah's solid, but
I'm not they're not a playoff team solid, but they are.
Yeah.
They'll mess you up solid.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll mess you up.
All right, so let's see who was right in the chat. Who is number 4 through number 1?
Oh, somebody did say Houston. Who said Houston? Somebody said Houston would be 4. Juan.
Yeah, I'm sure it's Juan.
Shout out to Juan.
No, I don't
I'm not
know.
even looking.
But Houston at number
Paxton
4
said Houston.
Houston at number 4. They jump up a spot. I mean, look, man, they are 7-1. They've won 3 straight games. They just went into Tempe and beat a somewhat less than full strength Arizona State team, to be sure, but I don't care. That was impressive for them to go out and really get out to a nice early lead to give themselves that room there at the end where Arizona State starts mounting their comeback and they're able to fend it off because in part of what they built up early in that game. But the defense is really good. Connor Wegman's a huge breath of fresh air. And I'm starting to just really enjoy this story for them. And you know what? They got a great draw scheduling wise. Like they have definitely benefited from the draw scheduling wise, but I did not ever anticipate them to be sitting here in week number 10 with 1 loss. And yet that's where we are at the Houston Cougars right now. I still have them at 4 because I don't take them head to head against any of these other 3 teams.
Texas Tech beat the hell out of them.
And Texas Tech beat the hell out of them. So Texas Tech up a spot to number 3. You do have the injury concerns, obviously. Maybe they're the best pound-for-pound team. Maybe they're the second best. But for right now, as I'll explain with Cincinnati, Tech is moving back up, but just by a spot here. At number 2, Cincinnati, staying pat where they are. You can't ding a program that's won 7 straight games. They went and handled their business against Baylor with little to no trouble whatsoever. I'm not convinced they're the second best team in the league, but that's where they find themselves as one of the only 2 unbeatens in the Big 12 right now. So you're one of only 2 unbeatens in the league, and we're this far into it. You're going to be one of the 2 teams at the very top of this list. And so Cincinnati's there at number 2, and obviously a huge test upcoming for them this weekend. You know, if they go and beat Utah, man, then start the promotions, rev them up. Like, let's get Satterfield Coach of the Year stuff going. Let's get Sorsby Heisman talk going. Like, let's rev that. Let's rev it all up. But that's going to be a tough challenge and a hell of a game. So Cincy at 2, and then BYU, the easy choice at number 1. They're unbeaten on the year, unbeaten in Big 12 play. I think they look like the best all-around team, special teams, offense, defense. And the big question you had about the quarterback has been answered time and time again this year where, by the way, prepare for Bear Bachmeier to run up the middle. And it doesn't matter if it's 2nd and 2 or if it's 2nd and 27. He'll pick up 28 yards for the first down. Even if you know it's coming, it's unreal that he's just
he's a genie.
I mean, in some ways, and it's like, and you go like, I know what's coming, and it doesn't matter because they block it so well, and he just slips through. But they are really good, man. LJ Martin's really good. Chase Roberts, Parker Kingston, and then that defense. I mean, we were talking a bit about some of them earlier, but Jack Kelly and company, great secondary. I mean, they're just a really good football team. I think they are, besides Tech at full strength, the team that can really go and make the most noise, taking on some of the other names that you might in the postseason. So BYU number 1, I don't think that comes as a surprise, but if Cincinnati rolls into Salt Lake, then that's going to be a much more interesting debate to have next week.
And there's games this week, obviously, not to look ahead, but you have that BYU Texas Tech collision course. Texas Tech has to worry about K-State. BYU having the off week too, right before that game. And as we have with Kalani Sitake coming up, he talks about that. Yeah.
They both have 2 weeks to prepare for this.
Yeah.
So that ought to be a hell of a game in Lubbock next week. We talked to Kalani Sitake about, as y'all will hear. But there you go. I think BYU right now, just a slight edge over Cincinnati. The bottom is kind of unchanged just because those teams keep losing, and it is what it is. But the middle, week to week, it's the Big 12. It could be all over the place, and if you expect anything less, then you haven't been following the league long enough.